Hi, my name is Jeff H. Sipe with PracticeInterviews.com. Yes, we do offer those practice interviews along with a host of other services. Check out our website, again, PracticeInterviews.com. Today, I'm throwing out the script. I've been working on the same script for hours. I know sometimes it doesn't feel like that. It feels a little unproduced, but I can tell you, any YouTube creator, we're spending a lot of time with our content. And so today, I wanted to throw it out. Typing through all this information, trying to create this perfect script, and the reality is, let's get down and dirty with what's been happening with my clients over the last 2 or 3 months. Tons of clients and tons of really, really positive information. It's what fuels these videos, which is awesome because all of our learnings are really coming from the feedback that we get by doing these one-on-one sessions. What is happening? What's going wrong? What are the areas that you really need to focus on to get better? Let's get rid of all the fluff, this very formulated, repetitive feedback that you're finding on these other platforms. What are the exact specific items that you need to get better? Let's dive right into it. Number one, your situation in your behavioral answers. It is just repeatedly, 100% of the time with my clients, they don't get it right. What does getting it right look like? 30 to 40 seconds, and we only need to highlight about 4 concepts. I need to know your job. I need to know your company. Why are those details important? Because that context sets the foundation. Then I need to know the client, internal or external. Hey, if that external client is confidential, their industry and their size. Again, this is all context. If they're a multi-billion-dollar company, it's going to help me understand that there's massive complexity there. And then what's that one thing, that one item? What are you trying to accomplish? What do you need to accomplish? And remember, that goes right back to the question that's being asked of you. In our behavioral answers, we're not just dumping this one complex example on our interviewer. We're really honed in and focused on 1 or 2 words that came in that question that are going to set the foundation in our situation for success. If I could give any piece of advice, I would just stop the video here, because the vast majority of companies are behavioral, or they'll lean behavioral. The Amazons of the world are only going to ask technical questions or behavioral questions, right? The Facebooks of the world, 80%, 85% behavioral questions. And the vast majority of other organizations, including the Googles of the world, are absolutely going to ask you a lot of behavioral questions. We got to get this right. If we don't set that foundation in the situation, the rest of the answer, it's a useless answer. I'm not connected. I don't understand. You haven't explained or given me a detail on the technology that you're focused on. I don't know anything about the client, and I am missing that connectivity throughout your answer. We could spend, and I do spend, a lot of time with my clients on this item. We need to move on from the setup really fast, but if we don't deliver those critical details in the setup, it's just not going to be efficient. It's really not going to be a great answer, and we could talk through all the other details, but they don't matter. They don't matter unless that setup is right. Secondly, we've talked a lot about the actions. Just remember, past performance predicts future performance. What does that mean? Go back to the question. What are the 1 or 2 items they're asking for you to answer in that question? Now let's get into the specific actions we took to uncover, to resolve, to make better, whatever's being asked in that question. So if we're talking about like a stakeholder conflict question, for example, we're not giving all this other background on what was happening and what was going on and what was the tech and what was this or that. We are specifically focused on, what did we talk with Jane about? When we had that first meeting in person via video, what were the 3 questions we asked Jane? What were the 3 things we did to listen? What were the 3 things we did to really capture that information? We really, really want to focus on the relationship component because that's the only important part of the question. So we've set this simplistic situation up. We've really gotten into the details specifically of what the question is asking. And then as we get into the results, we're just not backing away from that one initial positive result, which is what happened in your relationship with Jane. Positive relationship, everything got better for the future, etc. And then the leverage items. We can't stop at just that initial result. What were those leverage items? What did we really do to establish not only a strong relationship with Jane, but then that led to opening up other relationships. You guys identified some awesome process steps that helped the overall organization. These are the foundational items that are consistently missing across the board when we talk about behavioral questions. Have we covered all these topics before? Yeah, we have. But consistently, I just want you to think through these 3 items. Get these 3 items right, and you will have massive amounts of success. So let's flip to open-ended questions. What do we need to do? We need to start with that clarifying piece. The biggest thing about clarifying, just either or yes or no questions. Do not respond to an open-ended question with an open-ended question. You're going to annoy your audience. It's simply put, you are going to annoy your interviewer if you're just throwing questions right back at them to ask them to give you a lot of data. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for a few data points, and you can pre-plan those questions. Pre-plan them. New versus existing, internal versus external. Who's my audience? What is the industry? They're pre-planned. So you don't have to go in and use your brain. I don't want you to use your brain until the solution. So maybe you have one nuanced question that you add in based off the question, but go in with a plan. What are those questions you're going to need to get answered? Next, with the framework, I think that all the advice I've given on the framework is good, but it hasn't been great in terms of rigidity. I don't want you to be rigid, and I'm starting to really believe less is more. If we're outlining like 8 or 9 or 10 or 12 concepts in our framework, maybe it's too much. Maybe my coaching wasn't perfect there, and we need to get down to 3, 4, or 5 items that we can deliver in 30 seconds or less. It's boom, 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 boom. What do you want to focus on as our interviewer? This is our high level. The clarification is high level. The framework is high level. Now, let's talk about this critical item that is coming up with all my clients. It's the fluff. So what do I mean by the fluff? We get into the solution part of our open-ended answer, and we actually do not provide much more granularity. We don't go from here and deep dive. I need you to deep dive. I need you to get into the weeds. I need to see how you would operate in the position. Otherwise, we're just slightly expanding on things like scope and scale. We're slightly expanding on something like scalability. But it's so fluffy high level that you're interviewing for a sales engineer focused in machine learning, and I could give the same answer. And there's no way that I should be able to give that answer. You should go into depth that absolutely shows off your skill set, shows why you are a fit for that role. So what do I mean? Let's say you would get a classic question like, how would you evolve a customer's business by utilizing GCP? Well, we're not going to just talk about scalability or reliability or flexibility or automation. Those are high level. I could talk about those items. We're going to talk about maybe auto ML, for example, or the vision component of auto ML and how that could help a new retail client. And you're going to get into the weeds a little bit there. Just the high level, your interviewer is going to fall asleep. They're going to get bored. They're going to be thinking about the clouds or lunch or all the work that they have on their plate. But if we start to get into auto ML in that particular example for that particular role, now we're talking. That's going to really excite them. It's going to be a difference maker. I'm just seeing so much fluff in the solutions, and I'm just wondering, can't your interviewers see through that? Don't they understand that if we just stay at a really high level that you haven't really given them the visual? Now, of course, foundationally, I want you to build in the space with them. I want you to build in the space to have that great success so they feel like there's good ebbs and flows, good back and forth. But if you have been presented a question with very limited data, we have to make some assumptions. We have to dive in. Let's get rid of the fluff. And that goes back to the behavioral answers. Lots of storytelling and not getting into the details. It's fluffy. And ultimately, me as your interviewer, the likelihood that I am going to interview you and that I've scheduled 30 or 45 minutes to cleanly type up my notes, give that true assessment right afterwards, it's not happening, right? So I might revisit that feedback 1 or 2 days later. And if I see a lot of fluff, I'm going to say, oh, wow, these answers weren't quite as strong as I thought they were. But if I look back through my notes and I see massive levels of detail, deep diving, I'm going to say, oh, yes, this was even maybe better than I thought, because I interviewed 2 other candidates and their answers had no specificity. So understanding that your interviewer is probably going to take a break is important. Lastly, the other thing I want to just throw out there is 75%. No way we get 100% of our interviewers' attention. Very, very few people can listen at 100% attention. Actually, the science would probably prove that none of us can. But definitely in an interview, oftentimes they are distracted. It's a necessary part of their job that they don't love. And they have forgotten what it's like to be in your shoes. So the more we're able to get into the details, it will keep them connected. And the more, like in the setup for the behavioral answer, if you can create that simplistic situation with a couple of details that are going to keep them connected, work and operate and think about 75% of their brain, 50% of their brain. So if you're operating with somebody who's not 100% there, how do we make it easier for them to connect, understand, and really enjoy the conversation with us? If I could never produce a video ever again, these are the foundational items that have come up with hundreds of clients. This is what happens every single time. So if you just understand these really basic, really simple concepts, they will help you get better. I spent a lot of time writing the script today and I realized I just needed to get away from it and talk to you, the audience. What is happening? We can talk about this high level conceptual stuff, but at the end of the day, this is what happens with the premier clients of the world. Our clients are interviewing at the FANG companies. And if they're not getting it right, I know how difficult it can be to get all these items right, especially on your interview day. I really hope this unscripted session helped. I'm always here for questions. We also, if you hop onto our website, we have a Slack group, and my program manager, Iric, and we're just going to be hopping on videos, answering questions. I'm going to do more lives. So I love that you guys hang out with me. Continue to hang out with me. I really hope that this content is helping you. Today, I just wanted to keep it real and go unscripted, and I hope that this session helps. Thanks so much.